Renee, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Donna. Good morning, everyone. Renee Altomonte, Retail Market President for TD Bank. Been with the bank for about 24 years now, about 35 years in banking. Started off my career not like you think, oh, dream to be a banker, right? That was not my direction. I was actually putting myself through school, and I was studying psychology and just absolutely loved what I was doing. Loved the customer experience, loved the passion to, growing businesses and helping businesses, helping consumers. And it became one of my passions. So I stayed in banking, and I went to a few different banks, and, super happy of the differences we can make in the world with, one customer at a time.
Awesome. And Renee is my idol because she just purchased an RV to see the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It was, if you know me in my life, you'd say people who have known that are like, you? RV? Like you're going to camp? And I'm like, it's not really camping when you have like a bedroom and a kitchen and a glamping bathroom, But it was an opportunity. I've done a lot of travel in my life, and I thought, I've never really just done road travel, and why not? Why not try that? So just to look at the world in a different way. I mean, there's so many different views to see the world, and I just thought it'd be exciting. If you ask me how many trips I've been on in the last year, I'd probably say 5, but I really was hoping it'd be more like 50. So we got a lot of work to go.
I'm sure you'll get there. I have confidence. Pun intended. All right.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Rosanne DeTorres. I started my career as a lawyer, family lawyer. I have a small boutique practice out in Hunterdon County, and also have an office in Morristown area, I should say. I have a doctoral degree in business psychology. I thought, when I was about 55 that I should go back to school. I'm also an educator. I teach business law and legal research and writing. And I'm an author, wrote a couple books. And I'm delighted to be here to give you my 2 cents about how I branded myself. I was able to scale my business 4 or 5 times over in about 5 years by using some of the things that we're going to talk about today.
Excellent. Thank you. And Rosanne has the unique honor of being the second class at the military academy at West Point to allow women.
Yes, that's true.
Right? But however, she didn't last very long, so you'll have to tell us that. 4 weeks to be exact.
Yeah, I quit after 4 weeks.
It's little. Okay. And as I said, I'm Donna Miller, founder of C3 Workplace and Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting, where for this coming October, I will celebrate 30 years in business. And we have been helping teams, companies, business owners to accelerate their growth by providing all kinds of business advisory and support services. And we've got a table out there if you want to know more. My team is over there. Raise your hands. Yay! Okay. Oh, my fun fact, and I hadn't thought of this one in a long time. Very first interview I ever had, my mother buys me a suit from the equivalent of Walmart at the time. I get dressed up. I go on this interview. I think I was 15. And, she gives me the whole spiel about look him in the eye, give him a handshake, blah, 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 blah. And I'm all ready. I'm playing this all in my head. I'm in the reception. He comes out of his office. He says, Donna, nice to meet you. Handshake. Walk into his office. I did not see the little step that went into his office. And I literally fell flat on my face. So just goes to show you, keep getting up. Yes. Okay. So we're going to allow time at the end for questions and answers. So please, I would like for all of you to get as much as possible out of this. So know that we're a wealth of resources here, and we want to help you with your branding. So we're going to kind of go through 3 areas. We're going to talk a little bit about foundations, and then we're going to kind of kick it up a notch. So in thinking about the foundations for building your brand, Renee, you talked about something that I think is really fundamental and important. Talk to us about wardrobe.
Yeah, so that's when I think foundational, probably the first thing that comes to my mind. I've always just, starting in banking when I was 18, I was a child. What did I know? And one of the things that I learned really early on is dress for the position that you want, not for the one that you have. I started off as a teller, right? And the requirements for do we work as a teller were not, professional dress. But I wanted to stand out, and I wanted for people to take me seriously. Again, being at a young age, didn't want people to think, hey, I'm dealing with Renee, who, now she's giving me advice about my future, and she's a child. So I thought that was, hell, what does she know? I thought that was probably one of the most critical pieces of my growth was around, just dressing for the role that you want or aspire to, not necessarily for the one you have today. And that doesn't always mean spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a wardrobe and just putting yourself in a suit that you're not comfortable in. Dressing for the position you want with the style that you want to keep in mind. So I think that's, super critical.
I completely agree, and I'm really happy to say I no longer own a suit. I don't ever plan on wearing one again. It's not the world I operate in, so I think everybody has to find their own style. And when you get your photos for your headshot and your website, you want to make sure that what you're wearing also is portraying the brand or the image that you want to project. And kind of talking about photos, Birdia, you're a social media expert, and social media is a great branding tool. I have to admit, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship.
You're not the only one.
You talk about starting offline, and yes, that's really important. So talk to us a little bit about that.
It's important to start offline because even though social media is online, it starts here. So I have a question. How many people in the room, when you're thinking about branding, you're thinking about branding yourself as the professional, as the individual online? Raise your hand. How many people are thinking about, okay, I'm a business owner and I'm thinking about branding my business? Okay. And then how many people are thinking about both? Okay, good. So it starts here. Whether you're thinking about your individual professional brand or whether you're thinking about your business, start with who you are. What is it that you represent? What's the mission of your business? Who are your clients, your target audience? And what value do you provide? Are you an expert in your industry? Are you a thought leader from a professional perspective? When you think about your business, what is it that you do? What is it that's going to separate you from someone else who may be doing the same thing that you do? And then you need to show up and have it consistent, online and offline. So when you start thinking about that process, you ask yourself those questions and then you can kind of move forward, I would say, and develop your brand.
And I think, you have a beautiful outfit on, which is branded to match your company. So if you like to, with Dia's table,
I just noticed that. I carry it through.
Right.
You can't talk it, you got to walk the talk,
Well, that's true. So I think also, part of starting offline, I want to quote I wish he was my friend, but I feel like he is. I'm going to quote Simon Sinek, and he says, start with your why. And Rosanne, you said we have to start with perfecting your why. So I will tell you, I believe perfection is overrated, but I do think getting it to where you need it to be and you can articulate it. So talk to us about really being able to articulate your why.
Yeah, I think that comes for me as a closeted introvert. I've always found it difficult to be in groups. I know it's hard to believe, but I really lose a lot of energy when I'm in group settings like this. And so you'll see me run off later and go back to my room and recharge. But I think people end up buying from you based on who they think you are, to dovetail with what Birdia said. They want to know why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that for me, for example, people that come to see me who have a family law matter are usually not too happy to be there. And they assume I know what I'm talking about, which, as lawyers go, probably a bad assumption, but because I have the degree, they think I'm an expert. But what I think they end up buying when they hire me is my personality, is my ability to identify, to align with them, that they feel heard, that they think that they can talk to me and they feel like I identify with them. Because when I go into networking groups and I tell people I'm a divorce attorney, that ends up falling pretty flat with people. It's not a conversation starter. They often raise their eyebrows and they go, oh, huh. But I tend to use humor a lot and tell people, I help people lose weight. And then they ask me, how? Well, I could help you lose the weight of your unhappy 180-pound spouse. That seems to be a bit more memorable than I'm a divorce attorney.
And there's her compelling differentiator. And, Simon Sinek says quite accurately, people do business with why you do what you do more so than what you do. So for me, getting clear on values is the foundation for building your why. So for me, my values happen to be faith, impact, and joy. Everything I do, every decision I make, personally and professionally, whether I'm hiring somebody, whether I want to work with a vendor, or even whether I'm going to take a particular client on. If a client isn't aligned with my values, it's probably not going to end well. So I think getting clear on your values is a really important foundational piece to building your brand. So my question for all of you, how many of you can articulate your top 3 values? Awesome. I'm going to say this later as well. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. So I would say first action item, get clear on your first 3 values, and then learn to live them out loud. But that's further on in the conversation. So Renee, foundational and brand building as we move into brand building. You talked about being authentic. This is key. Tell our audience more.
Yeah, so, I think one of my favorite things to tell folks is, if you're not being your true self, you're not bringing your full self to a situation, whether it's to a personal situation, to, at home, if it's at work, if it's at an event. If you're not being who you are truly, who you really are, there's that lack of authenticity that people will, recognize really quick. And I go back and I think about someone that I'd worked with years ago who was not authentic, did not gain followership, did not gain respect, did not have true values, and was not able to move the needle, was not able to establish, long-lasting relationships, wasn't known as a trusted advisor, both internally and externally to the customer. So it was like, you watch someone else go through that and you think, wow, okay, I don't want to be that person. So who am I? And so if I had just give you a quick little story, banking is not, a rah-rah, jump up and down kind of situation, but I'm super energetic. So unlike Rosanne, I feed off of people. I get more energized, where I get so energized that I need oh my goodness, I'm going to explode from my excitement. And I was always like that. So, for the first probably about 5 or 6 years of my career, the feedback I received from my manager was you got to calm down. I'm like, this is a bank, right? And you really just have too much energy. And they would put me in certain places in the branch because I was loud, and they were like, you need to be over there. And what was happening was customers wanted to come to me. They would wait for me. They're like, no, I'm just going to wait for Renee. And it happened for so long, and it was over and over. And there was one thing I joined at the time. It was a Commerce Bank, now TD Bank. And I remembered through my interview, the first thing I said, she said, the question was, what kind of feedback do you receive on your reviews? And I said, well, feedback I get is I'm a little too energetic and I talk too much and I'm very loud. And she said, that's perfect. So you bring your full self to work. And I said, every day. And so that resonated with me over my career. And it's advice I give to others is you don't try to be someone else, right? You could say, hey, I love that career. I love that direction. I want to be in that journey. But if you think you're going to follow that journey and take their words and take their action and take their attire and think that's going to make you who you want to be, you're absolutely going down the wrong path. So being authentic and true to yourself is really what makes you deliver the best of you. So, bring the best of you to work every day or in whatever you do in every day, and the best will come.
I love that. And I think that, authenticity is so important because it makes you consistent, and consistency leads to trust. And I think how we prospect is how we do business. So people see how you're behaving as you're, circulating in the world, and they're going to translate that to doing business with you. And the other thing I think about authenticity is our goal with creating a brand, and I believe whether you work for a company or you work for yourself, you are your brand. Whether you're representing your company or yourself, I think one of the reasons we want to build our personal brand is because it puts us on the path to creating influence. And influence has you in the room when you're not even there. It's a really powerful tool. So that's another workshop. But as I enter kind of the fourth quarter of my career, I don't know that I'll ever actually finish, so it might be a very long fourth quarter. I'm really hyper-focused on trying to work smarter and saying no a lot more often than I say yes. So, Rosanne, talk to us about using your strengths to your advantage.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not really great in big social settings, so I have to fake it a lot of times. And one of the things that I've learned is that, to Renee's point, being myself, I've always felt that as I grew my business, that, again, when I would tell people what I do, it's sort of like not a very good conversation starter. So I use humor a lot. And I could give you a little example right now. You want to hear it? Okay.
Do I need to move?
No.
I'm a little afraid right now.
So, how many had a great summer? Everybody have a great summer? Kids all back to school? Yeah? And did you go on any summer vacations with your family and your spouse? How many went on summer vacation with their spouse? Well, you never, ever want to have another summer vacation with your spouse, I can help you with that. And I'm not really that funny, to be honest with you, but
yes.
I think that is it served me well to get people interested in what I was going to say next, because oftentimes what I would start saying next would be my little spiel about how to protect your business in a divorce, or what's alimony, like, and how do you calculate child support, and then maybe you haven't tuned out yet, right? But if I start talking about how to calculate child support, who gets alimony, you're just like hearing the teacher on.
I could have used Rosanne 3 years ago. Yeah, way.
The teacher on Charlie Brown. Wah, wah, wah. Like, that's what I think ends up happening when I start talking about the substance of really what I'm doing, right? So I think finding out what you're good at, and I think I was pretty good at the little silly joke to get people engaged in what I was going to say next.
And I think also, as you start to figure out what you're good at as a business growth consultant, I'm always having the conversations of, okay, what should you be focused on and what should you have other people doing for you, because it is not the highest use of your time. So just like you might need to identify what your top values are, what is the highest and best use of your time, and how can you spend as much time as possible doing that? So switching gears a little bit, Birdia, talk to us. Social media is such a tool for branding. Talk to us about some of the meatier pieces of how we use social media to brand.
So I have another question. I like to engage the audience, if you don't mind. Ladies, how many people have a LinkedIn profile? Okay, good. So before coming into the room, I'm winking on my left side of the room, because I was talking to a very, very nice individual about LinkedIn and the importance of having a LinkedIn profile. So when it comes to social media, I think about energetic. I think about personality. I have a 20-year background in corporate America and insurance company. So, my energy wasn't always, but you bring your energy into what you do. So when you think about social media platforms, think about starting with LinkedIn. It's my favorite. It's the easiest platform. Whether you're thinking about branding yourself as an individual professional, or whether you're thinking about branding yourself from a business perspective, think about which platform is right for you. Think about where your target audience or your target market is. If you're using LinkedIn from a branding perspective and you're thinking about career growth or your next career opportunity, you should definitely be on LinkedIn. If you're thinking about the fact that, okay, maybe my target audience are entrepreneurs, or maybe it's, retail, or maybe it's, corporate or executives, think about that particular social media platform, and you need to be where they are. So showing up is half the battle. Now, what do you do when you show up? It starts with actually having that presence on the platform. So it starts with the profile, but you also need to make sure you're being active and you're being consistent. So what you share makes a difference. If you are an expert in a certain field, you can easily find an article that's related to your industry. Share your thought process, your expertise on top of that article, and you show up as an expert in your field. Similar with a business. Make sure that from a business perspective, you are adding value no matter what. Everything should be adding value, and it should also reflect back to your personality, your brand, whether it's your brand theme, tone of voice, whatever the case may be. And always, always make sure you're consistent. I talk to a lot of clients who say, I ask the question, do you use social media? Yes, I use social media. So when is the last time you used social media? Oh, maybe 6 months ago. That's not using social media. We have to show up and we have to be consistent. That's the only way it's going to work.
Love it. And, you can hear the same themes throughout what we're saying. Be authentic, be consistent, make sure your brand is reflected. So just to kind of recap where we are before we move forward, we've talked about starting offline before you go online. I love that. We talked about appearance, authenticity. We talked about getting clear on your values, your why, leading with your strength. So let's kind of take it up a notch, because I want this conversation to kind of go from branding into influence, which is really what you're trying to do with all of this. Renee, you talked about something, and it was kind of an add-on for you, but it's so important. Talk to us about the value of volunteering to amplify your brand.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. I'll start with saying, you could go and volunteer anywhere, right? And just say, okay, check the box, I did it. And, maybe I met a contact, maybe I have a network. I take it back a few and think, oh, wait, if I'm going to volunteer, whether it's at a not-for-profit, food pantry, Meals on Wheels, any type of organization, I think one, like, what do I want to get out of that? How am I going to make a difference in that? And then more importantly, what am I passionate about? Right? I don't want to just go to an event because it's a volunteer event and it's going to put my name on a map if I'm not going to deliver anything for that. So early on in my career, I volunteered everywhere. I was trying to figure out, what's my niche? What do I love? What am I passionate about? And that's the way to do it. So initially you're, volunteer at different places. You might surprise you what you actually walk away feeling really good about. I did Meals on Wheels. I'm on the Special Olympics board today. And I'll tell you, I joined the board because I went to a few Special Olympics events, and the events are super special. And these are a bunch of athletes that have made lots of disabilities, but a ton of abilities. And they get so excited to, whether, no matter which sport or competition that they're in. And it felt very rewarding. And I volunteered for a few years before I joined the board. It's a good feel. And not only is it a good feel, but I've made a ton of connections that I would also say went beyond just a work life, connection. They became friends. People on the board, people from the staff of Special Olympics. When I was on Meals on Wheels, completely different spectrum. It's really helping to aid the elderly or those that were unable to, have food getting delivered to their homes. I used to deliver meals for Meals on Wheels for a few years. Then I joined the board on that. And that was a whole different type of reward, knowing that, there's elderly that are alone, or to me, it was passionate. For you, it might be something to do with children. Don't get me wrong. I love doing things with children, but having two of them and now they're growing up, I don't want to go backwards. Kind of like them growing up now. It's not where I'm passionate. So if someone has asked me to be involved in a event that had to do specifically with children, I'm not sure I'd be the right person, right? I'm not sure I'm going to deliver my authentic self, where I'm going to add value, and then I'd walk away feeling as if I did something good. So I think volunteerism is a way of branding yourself, but it's a way of branding yourself in a way that's not just, hey, I volunteer, right? It's, hey, I'm passionate about this organization. Let me tell you why. Because branding yourself doesn't just mean selling yourself. It means who your values. And I think, Donna, you talked about your values. I think it's about understanding what your values are. And I think that's an important, certainly she said takeaway and an action item right away. It is. And hopefully it does, create an opportunity to do some type of when I completely agree, Renee. And I think the other piece of that is
when you volunteer, again, on the path to influence, now you're sitting on boards. I sit on boards. And at this point in my career, the boards I choose to sit on are different than what I sat on 10 or 15 years ago. So, and it puts you in a room with like-minded, like-valued people, and only good can come from that. So, but flipping to another side of value, and Birdia, you touched on this, but Rosanne, you talked about adding value as part of your branding. Talk to us more about that.
So for me, most of my clients have to make a pretty significant financial commitment. And so there is a very high trust factor that goes into what I do before somebody will make a commitment to buy. So my sales cycle tends to be pretty long. And I have to be patient because I'm always planting seeds. You're not going to come in. Usually, typically, people don't come into my office and retain me right away. Sometimes they do, but most people have to think about it. It's a big decision, right? Getting divorced. So what I did was in 2016, I opened in a new market. I started my firm out in Hunterdon County where I raised my child, one child. That was enough. And with you on the no kid thing, like, I don't relate to the Barbie dolls in the kitchen sink. I don't know. My daughter came from somewhere. I don't know. It wasn't me, but but in any case, so I opened in this new market and I didn't know anybody. I opened an office in Morris County because we were sort of like flatlining in my revenue out in Hunterdon. And I don't know if you've ever been to Hunterdon County, New Jersey, but it's quite rural. And we just couldn't grow. And I did some research and found out that most people that get divorced, and you can actually get all this information from the United States government, live within 15 miles of their divorce attorney. So Hunterdon wasn't going to make it because there's just not enough density. And we had really a lot of market share, if you will, but there was just not enough people living in Hunterdon County if you want to be 15 miles from your divorce attorney. So we opened an office in Morris, but I didn't know a single soul there. And so I joined the Morris Chamber, and what I realized, great organization. What I realized was that one of the events that they hold is Business Connections, and I would sit in Business Connections, and during the event, there would be people get up and say, thank you for closed business, and they would mention people. They would say, thank you, Donna, for closed business. Donna had referred business to that person. And there was some people's names I kept hearing over being thanked for business. So I thought, I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna have I want my name up there. I want people saying thank you to Rosanne. So what I did was I started buying services from everybody in that organization that I could. I needed a photocopier. I got the photocopy guy. I needed, letterhead. I got the printer. I needed social media marketing. I got the marketing people, the SEO people to help me, come up in the Google rankings. Donna Miller, my business advisor. I mean, these are some of the things that I did so that at that event, there would be 5 or 6 people saying, thank you, Rosanne DeTorres, for closed business. Thank you, DeTorres and DeGeorge, for closed business. Who's DeTorres and DeGeorge? Who are they? Who's that Rosanne person? I hear all that. So that was a way for me to become top of mind. And then dovetailing off that, I would speak. I would volunteer. I would raise my hand. You need a sponsor. Yeah, I'll sponsor. You need somebody to volunteer for this event to be on the committee. Yep, I'll help. And essentially, I think what I put into it is what I got out of it. And I did that by adding value, by buying from my peers, by offering educational resources on my website, by volunteering and helping, and adding value that way.
I couldn't agree more. And also, as someone who helps companies drive more business, these stories of under-promising and over-delivering, which, is something I try to do on a daily basis, they become testimonials, they become case studies, they become sources for more business. So the thing that I always say, and it's kind of to what Rosanne was talking about, when someone calls me and says, Donna, I don't know if you do this, but I'm like, okay, I'm doing my job. I have become a go-to resource because people know I know people. I'm a connector, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. So along those lines, and that's where we're going, is one thing I know for sure, change is the constant. Your brand has to stay relevant to what's going on today, and your brand has to be dressed for the future. So a couple of years ago, I read The Infinite Game by my BFF, Simon Sinek, and I swiped the title Chief Visionary Officer. So I renamed myself. I gave myself a promotion, and I called myself Chief Visionary Officer because my job is to see around corners. So, Birdia, you've had to rebrand. I've had to rebrand. Talk to us a little bit about change.
Change is inevitable, okay? You have to embrace it. It's not always a comfortable feeling. However, for instance, I rebranded myself twice. In corporate America, I had one brand. I was a corporate executive. I was, specialized in technology and social media. I appealed to a certain audience. When I decided to leave corporate America into the world of being an entrepreneur, different brand. Still adopting the same because, it's who you are. The position doesn't make you. You make the position. So you still have to have your personality reflected. But now, if you go from being in corporate America to being an entrepreneur, what is your brand now? It's different. You still may interact and network with some of the same people, but if your target audience is different, if your purpose is different, how do you change that? How do you modify that? So I rebranded myself. So becoming an entrepreneur, then I didn't want to stop. I also, have been investing in real estate. So I said, you know what, let me go ahead and get my real estate license. So I am licensed throughout New Jersey, but that was another rebrand. 2 businesses, not just appealing to, the corporate world, not just appealing to, entrepreneurs or small business owners, but now what about real estate? So everything that you do, everything that you represent makes up who you are and what your brand is. And you start with really just thinking about it, asking yourself those questions. Who you are, what do you do, what do you represent, what do you want to be known for, and what makes you different.
Awesome. I couldn't agree more. So I mentioned that I'm going to be in business 30 years next year. And I rebranded about 10 years ago. C3 Workplace stands for Connect, Collaborate, Community. It's our secret sauce. We're connectors. It's what we do. We believe companies should be a force for good and that profit drives possibility. And that's what we built our brand on. And that's all aligned with my values. So again, I know I'm repeating myself, but if your brand isn't built on your values, then there's going to be a disconnect. And so having rebranded 10 years ago, I can tell you that I've probably tripled in size in 10 years versus the 20 years prior. And that rebranding and this whole approach of being a resource is what, gets you on stage. And what gets you on stage leads to influence, leads to referrals, leads to more business. It's a circular process, and you just have to keep working at it. So, and it can work for you too. Now, get out your pens if you have them, because as I mentioned at the beginning, knowledge is not power, applied knowledge is power. So I asked each of our panelists to come up with some recommended action items for you. So before we go to Q&A, let's make note of these action items and you decide what you're going to do. But we want to inspire you and motivate you, but we really want you to do something with this information. So Birdia, what do you want our audience to do?
Create a brand statement. I just shared the questions with you, the things that you should think about. The first step is creating your brand statement and share it with 3 people. You need feedback from people who know you, feedback from people who know your personality. So make sure that you go back, you think about your brand statement. Even if you already have one, you got to keep it fresh. You have to make sure that as you evolve, so should your brand statement. And I'm here. If there's anything that you want to run by me, I'm here to hear your brand statements and kind of help you with that. If there's anything I can do to help with that.
Thank you, Birdia. Renee.
It's interesting. I love that. So yes, one of the things I was going to say was definitely engage with other people. I'd start at home. Be honest with you. Ask folks in your family, whether it's your immediate or distant relatives, what they perceive of you. What is your brand to them? It's interesting that a lot of words would be the same. And I'm just real quick. I remember I was doing this a few years ago, and I asked my children, and they were like 12 and 10 at the time. What is my brand, guys? Like, what's mommy about? And they use the word like, you're crazy. right? But, it's interesting because I did the same thing at work. I asked for 6 words and they gave me my 6 words, and I did the same thing with people I work with. And they didn't say crazy, but they said, super energetic. And I'm like, well, that's the same. Right. But I think, not only just, ask, but be open to the feedback. It may be hard to hear, and you may be thinking, that's not me, and you might want to shut it down. I'd say be absolutely open to feedback. It's a gift. And if someone's willing to share what their perception and what their brand, what version of your brand, of what it is, take it. I'm not saying you have to listen to every word, but take it, listen, and then ask and engage some more. So that'd be number one. And then certainly number two, get involved. Whether it's a community volunteer, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year type of, find something you're passionate about, get involved, and spread your network that way. When you think about your brand, or you're writing down who you are, you want to be passionate about what you are doing in your day-to-day life as well. So total value.
I agree. I mean, the world needs what you have, what you uniquely have. Where can you put that to work? Rosanne.
Start with Why by Simon Sinek. It's an 18-minute YouTube video. Highly recommend, so that when people say, what do? You can tell them why you do what you do instead. People don't really care, I think, about what you do. I think they care more about why you do what you do. That's number one. Number two, I would never eat alone. When I moved into the new market in 2016, I ate almost every day, breakfast and lunch, with somebody new. You got to eat, right? 1-to-1 to death. 1-to-1 like crazy. Never eat alone. Meet somebody new. You're planting seeds. You're not looking to do business with everybody you have a meal with. You're just planting seeds. You want to get your name recognized. When people start thinking about what you may offer as a business, they're going to remember you because you've been out there meeting people.
I agree completely. And the Simon Sinek video, not that I think it will be hard to find, but it's actually called How Great Leaders Inspire Action. And last time I looked, it had over 70 million views. 18 minutes transformative. So, my action items for all of you, I said, I really do think it's important that you determine what your top 3 values are. If you need help with that, I have a little exercise that I can send you. The other thing is, and we didn't talk about this, but this is aligned with my brand, so I'm going to share it as feel free to steal this. I have beautiful, personalized note cards that have my name on them. And I send out lots of handwritten note cards all the time because it shows people that I care in a very personalized way. And trust me, how many of you got a handwritten note card this week? All right, we got one person. Okay, a couple weeks ago. The point is, it's a real standout. So it's another way of branding yourself, conveying your values. We actually, when we get a referral from a client, I have these cards. I can't remember the name of it, but if you email me, I could find it for you. It's an organization where you buy a gift card. And so instead of sending my client a Starbucks card as a thank you, I send him him or her this card, and they can go online and donate to whatever charity they want. Again, one of my values is impact. So I'm going to try and do every little thing I can to get the greatest impact. So that is, am I good on time? Okay, Q&A. So ladies, you've got 3 amazing women here for counting myself. There you go. Yeah. So questions that you have for us. Yes. And first of all, kudos for sitting in the front row.
Yeah.
Just saying, you front row people.
So you talked about being open to the feedback that you receive from other people. What if the feedback is not what you expected? How do you change that?
That's a terrific question, Stephanie. I'm so happy you asked that. Not everything you're always going to hear is what you're going to see and believe, right? I may say, I'm so confident and I'm super outgoing and I love people. And when people look at me, they're like, oh, they could feel my energy. And then I could speak to someone and they'll say, yeah, I don't really see that, right? I think one of the things are, it's constructive criticism and it's an opinion. And I'm not saying, you use the expression perception is reality. You can't always believe everything you hear, but I think you ask more people, right? Expand that circle out, expand it out again. And if you're hearing this same recurring theme, then maybe it is time to just look in the mirror and recognize that, hey, if this is how I'm being perceived, again, perception is reality, then maybe there's something I should change. I had worked in the bank, but I had done a job that was more strategy related. I took it. I absolutely did not like it. I didn't know people could see that. I was faking it until I could make it. And and everyone kept coming up to me saying, like, you don't seem very happy. Like, this is not the role for you. And I'm like, no, it's great. I'm feeling really good about it, making some strides. But I kept asking then, like, what are people thinking? And it was then, and I thought, well, I'm not even being true to myself because I don't like it at all, and then I started thinking, I don't like it. It's not for me. I want to be back with the people. I don't want to talk strategy. So I think you just expand that circle, keep asking. But if you hear recurring themes, it is time to look in the mirror to say, okay, what could I be doing differently and how could I be doing it differently?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would also add on to that I think each of us needs to sit at the table, have the people at the table that will tell us what we need to hear, not what we want to hear. So if you don't have that table, build that table. We've got one.
Can I add to that just real quick? I had an advisory board real quick that told us when we were just in Hunterdon that we couldn't get the clients we wanted because people thought of us as country lawyers. And that really resonated. And we rebranded to try to move away from that, podunk, out in the country, we don't really know what we're doing kind of perception.
Yeah, I think we had a question here. Thank you.
I'll stand. Hi, everyone. My name is Cecilia. I am the supervisor at RWJ Barnabas, patient access supervisor in the emergency room. So I wanted to just say something about feedback. So I want to share a story. When I first became supervisor, I thought, okay, I want to touch base with the team because I don't like the word staff. So I had this, I'd say, let's have an unpack session. So I had one of the ladies, her name's Irene, and she'd been there much longer than I was, and she didn't take too well to the fact that I became supervisor, but she's been there too much longer than I was. So I said to her, Irene, let's unpack. She said to me, do you know what, since you became supervisor, we find that you just keep telling us what management wants us to do. And I thought, that's not true. So I took offense to it. And then I thought, okay, just listen. So she said, you keep telling us, you're not asking us. You just keep going to these meetings and then you say, they said we have to do this and we have to do that. And then one day I took a minute and I thought, because I always think of what I want my legacy to be. And I thought, I want my legacy to be that I was kind, that I was courteous, and that I was gracious. And then I took a minute and I thought, she's right. I wasn't kind, nor was I being courteous, nor was I being gracious. And then I had to think about it and I thought, people respond better to being invited. So then I went back to her and I said to her, I had to thank her. I thanked her for being honest. And I said to her, it was a bit brutal to hear that I wasn't being kind. So then I said to her, I'd like to revisit our unpacking sessions. I said, I'd like to invite you to what was discussed at management meetings. And therefore, we're all going to work together to implement what was being said. But on the feedback, I did not take well to being told that I was not being kind.
Yeah. Well, you know what I take out of that as well is when you have a situation where someone gives you feedback that's not necessarily what you want to hear. First of all, I always think there's 10% right about this. How can I build on the 10%? But also, by going back to that person and saying, let's re-unpack this, you were being authentic. You were modeling really great behavior of nobody's perfect and sometimes we all need to do something over. And I think that's also very authentic. And that space makes it really safe for other people to do it. So I think it's a really important thing.
I agree. And I just have one thing to add. And I love that story because one thing that's important is for you to go back, think about the feedback, whether you agree with it or not, because initially your first reaction may be, I really don't agree with that. But when you think about it over time, you can only change what's within your control. and you decided to adjust or change what was in your control, and you ended up showing up differently.
Yeah, I think when I get defensive, I know I have to look a little deeper. And so we had a question over here.
Hi, good morning. Courtney Villani Bus, third generation school and charter bus transportation. We're in our 104th year of business. So thank you very much.
Congratulations. Wow.
So when I started in the business, I thought to myself, oh, I can't be my father. You know, he was a mechanic. He was working on the buses from 5 years old and driving them. He knew how to do everything soup to nuts. I'm never going to be able to fill those shoes until one day, and I'm a quick learner, so it only took a decade. I realized I'm not supposed to do that, right? We're supposed to rely on others. And to the young lady who asked in the front row, you know, just be patient, because whatever people hear or see, it's going to take them a long time to unhear or unsee. So when I came into the business, I was all my past working experience was in the fire department. I was a firefighter for a decade. And so in the fire department, you speak in, you know, directives, right? And telling people very directly what to do. And so my biggest, closest guys would be like, you know, just maybe ease up a little. Just, you know, this is their first job. And, you know, the way that you say what you're saying is so much, has so much impact. And I, again, just give me a decade and I caught on to that, right? But I still find myself thinking about, how do my members of my Villani Bus team, who grew with me through those years and saw me when I was so direct and, you know, short-spoken and terse, how do they perceive me now as they've seen change through the years? And some of them that are closer could really see it, and others are just like, you know, and you just kind of have to accept that some people are going to get it and some people aren't. But my question to you is, as women, you know, we have some days where we feel like Wonder Woman and other days when we're, okay, we can do this. What do you say to yourselves on those days to remind yourself of the strong, capable, confident, amazing women that you are? We can borrow.
I've taken each chance. For me, it's I'm a child of God and there's nothing I can't do.
That was my answer.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
We're all children of God.
You know, I mean, I built this company from nothing. I have a high school education and a big set of you-know-what. And I just went out.
Ovaries.
All right, go ahead.
Not the other thing. What's that?
You know, it's a great question. You know, because obviously we're human. This happens. I just, you know, I've replayed to myself a few things. One, it's just keep putting one foot in front of the other, right? Just one foot in front of the other. You know, you'll get through that. And this too shall pass. These are like some of my favorite. I say this stuff to myself all day long. It's in my head. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. Because at the end of the week, month, year, a few years, it's going to be a blip on the radar. Just a blip.
Yeah.
So that's just how some things I do to get through it.
I tell myself it's temporary. How you're feeling in that moment is temporary. It's only going to last for that moment. Tomorrow's a new day. If you feel like that first thing in the morning, the afternoon could be a new day. Mm-hmm. So telling yourself that it's temporary will help you get through that temporary moment and move on, and you'll look back at it and say, okay, I got through this, now let's go on to the next thing.
I feel like we may have been in the same business together, because I had this very similar experience leading my team as my business grew and grew, and I was ill-equipped to be a leader, really poor. And I've learned a lot by becoming vulnerable and letting my team educate me about what they needed and wanted from me. And it was very humbling experience, you know, when you think you're the smartest person in the room because you got all the coupons after your name. It's not true. And they could well educate me about how they needed to be led. And it's been a not only a eye-opening, but very fulfilling experience, to be honest with you, because our relationships inside the organization have grown and grown to be really a beautiful thing. I love the people I work with, and I think they really care about me too.
Yeah, and Roseanne, just to just tie in some of these things, so they're all related, right? It's all very related. I just believe whether you're working for an organization or you run an organization, so whether you're asking your superiors or supervisors this question, or you're asking your direct reports this question, I think every once in a while you should check in and with yourself and ask, is there anything different that you would like me to do? Whether it was that situation, whether it was how I responded to something, whether it was how I performed a task, was there anything different? And allow that room for feedback. People do love talking about themselves, and people do like sharing what they would have done differently. And I think that's that knowledge is power, and that applied knowledge is power. It really does always resonate back to me.
I think we probably have time for one more question. I don't know where the mic is, so whoever can speak the loudest. Casey, wait, here comes the mic, because I think we're being recorded.
As a reformed wallflower myself, this question is for Rosanne and possibly Birdia.
Okay.
What I want to know is, how can those of us with more introverted personalities continue, Donna, stand out, brand ourselves without it being so draining? And I want to know how we can do this in person as well as online, because it is a challenge.
When I go into, thank you for the question, Casey. I'm pretty deliberate about before I go into the event. It's not so hard now because I'm kind of getting kind of old at this. I'm in my fourth quarter, so I'm not new at this. But now, in the beginning, what I would do is I would beeline for the food. I always have something in my hand, like a glass or plate. I hover around the food. And essentially, I ask a lot of questions. That is how I've overcome being in a room of people that I don't know. I'm good at asking questions because I'm a lawyer. And I'm curious about people. I have a very curious mind, which probably explains why I'm still in school. And so I think that's how I have overcome my introversion, by getting people to talk about themselves, because you know what your favorite topic is, right? Yourself. Everybody wants to talk about themselves. People like to talk about themselves. They like to feel heard. So that's one thing. As far as the social media thing or online, that's pretty.
Yeah. So I'm going to speak offline and online. I'm an introvert. On the Myers-Briggs personality test, introvert is here, extrovert is here. I'm all the way. When I leave here and go home tonight, I'm going to crawl up on the couch in sweatpants and a sweatshirt, okay, because of the cold weather, and re-energize. That's important as an introvert. It's important for you to understand where you get your energy. However, when you are in person or on a telephone or whatever the case may be in a social setting, you have to be comfortable with, as women, we're not always comfortable speaking about ourselves. We have to get comfortable speaking about ourselves. If you're at a networking event and you may not feel comfortable being around a lot of people, you don't have to go or gear towards the largest area of the room with the most people. You can easily start networking where you're comfortable. Maybe it's 2 people standing off to the side and you want to have a conversation with them. And as you continue to become more comfortable in that setting, maybe it's a group of 5 people. And before you know it, you may decide, I'm ready to take on the whole room. But you do what's comfortable for you at that time. You pace yourself, and you also take that moment of me time when you need it.
Agree. Well, time goes quickly, and so I'm getting the "you need to wrap up" Donna sign. So thank you to our panelists, Birdia Chambers, the founder and CEO of Epic Transformation, Renee Altomonte with TD Bank, Rosanne DeTorres, managing partner at DeTorres and DeGeorge Family Law. Can we have a nice round of applause for our ad? Thank you for attending this panel. If you're looking for more information, check out the new courses NJBIA is offering in their HR training resource. There are courses on various aspects of communication you might find helpful. One of many of the resources, the NJBIA has amazing resources. I'm Donna Miller. I'm Chief Visionary Officer at C3 Workplace and founder of Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting. I look forward to networking with you, and we are here if we can help you in any way.
Thank you all very much, ladies. You are amazing.